Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one and the only Sir Hell Speaks in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Sir Hell Speaks. It is good to see everybody tonight. I hope that you guys are well. As you guys are coming in, be sure to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. Let folks know to join in the conversation. We're going to have a good discussion. Now, as we're going to move a bit quickly because, we've got some participants who've got things to do, places to go, and I like to keep my shows under an hour. I'm doing this show to explore some of the commonly held beliefs about Black culture. And to do this, I've got some guests with me who are going to offer their perspectives on this particular topic. The followers are leading, and that's why we keep on losing. So bringing to the stage first is the one of the only Mandrell is in the building. How are you, my brother?
All right. How are you?
Good. Bringing to the stage second is Thanos Theory, new to the channel, but true to the message. What's up, my brother?
Hey, how you doing, Sir Harold?
See you, man. And then y'all know what time it is. The Popation is in the building. A good friend of mine, Rob B, is here to offer her perspective as well. What's up, Rob?
Hey, y'all. Hey.
All right, good, y'all. So we're going to make this quick, but I think we're going to make this meaningful. So why am I doing this show? You guys know if you've done podcasts enough, you've heard the phrase Black culture is trash. Right, that's across the board. We've all heard this. But my question is, at what point do we stop at the talking point that it's trash and we start doing what it takes to change it? And so I want to open up with that general question. So we can all agree that there are problems with the culture. But my question is, what are we doing about it collectively to change this narrative? Let's start with Raw B, and then we'll go clockwise.
Well, for me, I am actually starting to produce content that dispels the fallacies and the misinformation that's being spread in the community. A lot of the statistics are wrong, which changes the viewpoints, and it downgrades the whole society.
Okay. What about you, Thanos? What, on a daily basis, doesn't have to be something, huge, but what are you doing on a daily basis to change the narrative?
Trying to fight against some of the people in these spaces for the most part. Am I delaying again?
Just a bit, yeah. But we hear what you're saying though, very clearly.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix it though. Basically trying to reach out in the space. Of course, I do it out, offline. But one thing I'm seeing from people all over YouTube is that they're really fighting against it. So it's almost looking like the solution is to start separating, unfortunately, and building up, a separate community, and then inviting the ones who do want to get out of their old ways to come on over.
Excellent. And good to see you, Bravo, with Sheila. I see you in here. Good to see you on the Knowledge and Relationships. Good to see you guys tonight. Mandrell, what about you? So what are you doing to help change this narrative that the Black culture is trash?
Giving out accurate information. And being what is from my point of view, a good example of what Black people are. The first example people are going to have is you. However, as I'm doing that, I've always been seen as an outlier as opposed to the norm. And it's because of what people are allowed to see. Our image is posted everywhere. And what our image is, the image that people see is what people think, so if they see people twerking at historical sites or just in a restaurant or whatever, that's what they're going to think Black people do. So if you show them differently, they'll be like, oh, I didn't know Black people went to church. Yes, I've heard that. I didn't know black people speak like you. Yeah, we do. We have a vocabulary. You know what I mean? I didn't know black people were that smart. Yes, people have heard that too. So, just yourself being the example, and to show them that we're not the blithering idiots that you think we are. They think you're knuckle draggers. So no,
Okay, good.
you don't. Be the example.
Excellent. Okay, guys, we're going to jump right into this. So the question is going to be a little bit steamy at first, but you guys are going to understand why we're going here to start off. So Pew Research wrote an article in 2022 talking about how the rising perspective on a single mothers raising children, cohabitating, wasn't good for community, for society. They published that, and it took into account some of the statistics that we have all seen, specifically about children who are in fatherless households and the negative stats around that. So if you guys look here, you guys see the statistics around this. You guys can see that 63% of all youth, deletions are the result of fatherlessness or a teenage pregnancy. 70% is that. 71% of all substance abusers, 80% of prison inmates, 90% of all homeless. I mean, the list goes on and on. So we have these statistics, and although it's very difficult to talk about this, because in talking about this and holding people accountable, I mean, there are different narratives and stories about this that makes it hard to get through these conversations. So my question for each of you is, are we spending too much time talking about the effects of single motherhood, or do we need to talk about it more and be strategic in our messaging of why this is not good for community? Let's start with Robbie.
It's very interesting that you bring up those stats, because I just did a show earlier today debunking the myths related to single motherhood. When we pulled up multiple sources of information, most children are grown up in a two-parent household. The actual number of single parent households in the United States of America is less than 20%, which means the amount of single parent households in our community is not as devastating as people would like to make it seem. Yes, single parents' homes, whether mothers or fathers, can produce a disturbing outcome because it's a lack of resources and it's a lack of the availability of both parents to pour in. But if we keep concentrating our efforts on things that are minimalistic at best in our community and don't serve the overall goal of Black pride, Black unity, and Black power, we're going to get stuck. The record player keeps skipping on the track and nobody has enough sense to just change the record.
You guys heard it from Rob B. Thanos Theory, do you agree with what Rob B says? Are we focused too much on single motherhood, or do we need to talk about it more in a more strategic way to change this narrative?
I think we're too focused on women, period. If we get to the root of men dealing with men and we holding ourselves accountable, whether, not paying attention and focusing on what the women are doing right now, we can change a lot of that stuff, because if you're moving in a certain way, those women are not going to have access to you. So eventually, over time, the women are going to fall in line who wants to play in those rooms with those, men that are taking care of business, moving with a purpose. And so you'll do it that way, because you trying to build the plane while you fly and it's already on fire. It's just not going to work. We'll have to start at the root.
Okay, that you bring up an interesting point, because the assumption is if men are there, women will be this. And I think that a lot of men have grown up to believe this, that if they just be great men, men who are spiritual, that women will naturally follow. And I think that men forget that women are autonomous beings. They can choose whether or not they want to follow a good man or go after what they desire. So we'll circle back to that, because I think you bring up a good point that a lot of people think about today. Mandrell, the question is on you. Do we focus too much on the negative effects of single motherhood, or should we talk about it more in a more strategic way to help change the narrative?
Yes, basically, overall, the big picture here is that we spend way too much time pointing out problems. Just pointing out problems, and we talk about the problems. No one's talking about how to fix those problems. But on my show, I do talk about how to fix the problems. I do talk about solutions every week, but people don't seem to be interested in that. If you get a channel who does nothing but talk about problems, and in the same time slot as a channel that does talk about solutions, the majority of the crowd is over there talking about the problems. They're not talking about how to fix them. It's just amazing how people's minds are just fixated on talking about the problem and talking about the negative as opposed to the affirmative. I did a show where I tested everyone out. I told people, don't come on my panel tonight unless you have a solution. I repeated myself several times. This show is about solutions. If you're gonna argue about something, let's argue about the solution and its implementation. First thing people did was like, you can't fix this problem. You can't fix it. I'm like, that's not the point. Come up with a solution. And everyone had a super difficult time doing that. And at the end of it, no one even understood the point of the show. So it's like, you have to change people's mindset overall. And until you change your mindset, you're not going to understand that you're the problem.
Well, let me interject right there, Mandro, because I think you raise up something that I hear as well. It's where are the solutions at? If you go to enough panels and talk about any topic for long enough, you're going to hear that general idea. But here's my question. Isn't it difficult to come up with a comprehensive solution, to come up with a collective idea on how to move forward if we can't agree that a problem is a problem? What's your perspective on that? And Robbie, please jump in as well.
Well,
nope.
If the thing is, it's not hard to come up with a solution at all. Even if people as a collective think that solution won't work, if the solution works, it works. That the fact that they're too slow or can't keep up or can't think solution space, that's their problem. But the machine must keep moving forward.
But I want you to focus on my question though. So I agree with what you're saying, but I'm saying if we can agree that a problem is a problem, and what I mean, let's say single motherhood. I personally believe that rising single motherhood and the promotion of it is very terrible for our community and society. I personally stand on that. And as a result of what I believe, I want to take as much steps as I can to promote healthy relationships, husbands being husbands, fathers being fathers, mothers being mothers, and us growing our community that way. So what I'm saying is, don't we have to agree that a problem is a problem before we start talking about solutions?
No. So here's the thing, right? The solution is basic, and I bring it up all the time. And whenever I say it, I'm always met with pushback. Stop having reckless, unprotected sex and producing babies. Marriage is not for everybody. Parenthood is not for everybody. Some people are able to hold a penny, and some people have their legs gapped wide open. Either way, the pendulum swings. If you know that you don't want to be a parent, you don't want to deal with child support issues, you don't want to be part of the statistics or raise your children in a manner in which they may fall prey to the statistical facts of the fallout from single parenthood, then get a vasectomy, get a tubal ligation, use a condom, use birth control methods regularly and steadily, put a vaginal contraceptive film inside of your vagina. Like, there are steps that we could do to not have this problem. The reality is people are lazy. They are animalistic in nature. They're very instinctual, and nobody is logical enough to take self-accountability. And
Robbie, let me interject. Earlier, it almost appeared as if single motherhood in itself, in terms of this narrative, wasn't a problem. Now it sounds like you're at least consenting that single motherhood is or can potentially be a problem. Is that fair to say?
No, this is the thing. I'm not ever saying that single motherhood is not an issue, because I fully believe that parents deserve to have both of their parents in their life full time. Me, I'm not like a majority of other women. I waited to have my children. Me, my children, and their father have the same last name. I made sure I had an education and things to fall back on just in case the relationship did not work out, so my children wouldn't be in poverty and be destitute. A lot of people don't think 20 steps ahead in regards to having their children. What I stated earlier was that single parenthood in America accounts for 17% of the total population. In that 17%, 51% of those households are, let me back it a little bit. 80% of that 17% is single mothers. 51.4% of those are white families. 39.7 or something like that are black families. So when we're looking at the numbers in real time, in reality, and we put them in perspective, in our communities, more families are husband and wives. More families are raising their children in a two-parent household. But what this community does is it feeds into the salaciousness of it all. It gives no credit to good mothers. It gives no credit to good fathers. It gives no credit to husbands or wives because it's lame and it's corny and you should be out here sleeping with all of these women. There's these double standards and this idiocracy that is constantly spewed by people that simply hate their mothers. The reality is there's like a handful of people on social media influencing all of our youth, especially our male youth. These men are broken, they need therapy, and they are bitter, and they are infecting the potential group of husbands and fathers and teaching them that it's okay to run through women because women are 304s and they're for the streets. Instead of saying to them, hey, I grew up in a household with a single mother. I didn't like the behaviors that my mother attributed or showed me. And I don't want you to fall into the trap to be involved with one of those women. Here is how you avoid that.
Let me ask you a question based off of the numbers you provided. So I don't even want to go into the specifics of the numbers. Isn't it possible for if we use percentages and we say it's only 17% or 25%, isn't that a way to really mask the fact that even if that percentage is low, the fact that it's still too high in our communities for us to thrive and win like we should? Does that question make sense?
It does make sense, but no. Because the reality is, when you go to a store, you know there's going to be a percentage of shrink, which is people stealing from the store. The store doesn't stop operating because it knows that a nominal amount of people are going to steal. Instead, what they focus on is the other places to generate revenue. And our community, that is a nominal amount of people. And I love when people say that I'm extrapolating numbers or whatever, because this is what people do. They sit there and they give pushback to numbers, but they have not ever sat down and really pulled up the data. The data. I don't extrapolate numbers. I deal in data and facts. I don't deal in emotion, and a lot of people do. So emotionally, it feels bad that women in our culture are single mothers. Oh my God, it feels so bad. But the reality is, are you congratulating the women that are wives? Are you congratulating the women that have waited and are not raising their children in poverty? Are you congratulating the people in our community that are not on social services? Because the majority of people in the welfare system is 75% Caucasian. No. Let's make sure that the whole
So
looks like they're all crackheads on social services.
Let me interject that. I want to get the fellas in here as well. So the question is not whether or not we should applaud mothers, because I want to say from a society perspective, I think that we give a lot of mothers great credit. And if I take this a step further, I think that some mothers get credit who don't necessarily deserve it, right? So I think that the praise is there. But I really want to get back to this numbers because it's very easy for us to kind of obfuscate the truth by saying the percentage is only 20%. When let's take your example about the store. Most stores have a loss prevention. They account for potential loss. So a Walmart could afford that, but a mom and pop shop couldn't. I say that to say, in the general public is like Walmart. There's more than us. We are at the place where we're more of a mom and pop shop. We have enough to sustain, but we don't have as much to lose without going out of business. And I think that's where we are as a community. Do you see that that's as a problem, Robbie? Really quickly, and then I want to get Mandrell and Thanos on this as well.
Not really. Again, I feel like you are what you focus on. You tell me what you obsess over, and I'll tell you what defines you. If you're a single mother, you're going to obsess over the numbers because you want to be perceived a certain way. If you're marriage minded and you're a wife, you're going to focus on marriage and people that are marriage minded. Our society is regressed because they focused on sex, money, power, and mayhem. Nobody's focusing on being wholesome and knowing what they're talking about.
To that point, Mandrell, what are your thoughts on what Robbie has said so far? And do you agree that we're downplaying the numbers, and in so doing, we're not getting down to the root of the issue when in the effects of single motherhood?
The numbers are definitely being downplayed, but at the same time, they're not being they are being downplayed in certain. You have to compartmentalize it. Okay, some areas, in this case being the media, they're gonna make it sound like the worst thing ever. Okay, they're gonna sensationalize it to make it seem like, because that's a better story, to sensationalize things and blow them up and blow them out of proportions. At the same time, when you look at the community that we're talking about, this one being the Black community, we downplay things because it's convenient. You have videos of women making videos now saying that it's okay to be a single mother. It's okay to raise a child by yourself. It's okay to not have the father in the picture when we know that that's not the most healthy thing for the child. So yeah, and it's because it's out of convenience. People don't want to feel inadequate. They want to feel like they want to feel, and again, they want to feel like they can do it all on their own. They want to feel like they don't need anyone's help, that they're enough. And that's where the problem lies, how people feel and their state of mind. To answer your question, your question earlier, can we solve a problem without first agreeing that there is a problem in the first place? Bottom line is no. To bottom line it, that's the big picture. And I was going to say, if you compartmentalize it and take it for reality's sake, there's going to be a margin of people who agree that something is a problem, and a margin of people that's going to say no, it's not a problem. Robbie alluded to it earlier. There's going to be a margin of people, like, stores don't stop because people steal. That's what they got a loss prevention task force for. So that means that people who recognize something as a problem, those are the people will be the people to band together and pull resources together and try to fix the problem, whether everyone else agrees with it or not. Because most people want to take the path of least resistance. They don't want to be involved, even if they recognize that this is a problem, but they'll just downplay it and say it's not as big as a problem as you think it is.
And that's a good point. Thanos Theory, do you agree with what Mandrell and what Robbie said? In other words, there is a problem, but we're spending too much time calling it out and not enough time focused on the solution of it. And if so, what's the solution?
So I know, Robbie gets down with the data. We talk all the time. And she's not wrong. The thing is that even if it was 99% single mothers, that the people that we need to talk to are not going to listen. So like Mandrell said, if you don't acknowledge it's a problem, I can't even talk solutions with you. Because if you do talk, I see more people talk to win arguments than actually try to make changes.
Facts.
Okay, and a solution.
So my only solution, and I say for everyone, is that community is built by individuals. So if everybody was, would try to do the best they can, as much as they're supposed to, be responsible, make as good choices as they can, the community would build itself and we'll start coming out of this. But when people don't have shame or the I don't care attitudes, too much freedom is hurting a lot of people. And I just be honest, I've been to several countries, and one thing I know about America is just sometimes it's just too much freedom. And when you got too many choices to choose, you usually choose wrong.
Or choose nothing.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up into the next segment, but I'm going to end this by saying this. While I respect everybody's position, single motherhood is a problem, and we need to treat it as such. I said I equate it to this. It's a reason we have car insurance, right? We don't anticipate getting into an accident, but in case we do, we're protected. I say this, even if we don't all agree that single motherhood is a problem, if enough people are saying it, whether we agree or not, I think we should treat it as one and go into preventative steps to fix that. Here's the other thing is when they're single mothers, the truth is most mothers who are single, they don't have the capacity to raise their children, even though they manage the children. So the kids are living home with them. The kids are there with them. The kids are in the next room, but having the emotional bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, the energy to give each child the attention that they need to grow in a healthy way, they don't get that. And I think it's something that we have to be very honest about.
They don't know the difference between raising a child and managing a child. It's like you said, most of them manage their children, but they're not actually raising them. Like very few people, period, regardless of gender, like you said, have that kind of bandwidth. But they think that just because things get hard and they make it through that, they're doing a good job of raising them. No, you're enduring your children. You're not actually raising them.
Precisely.
It takes two people.
Here's the thing. You want to know the solution? It's a very simple one. Men, if you don't want women to be single mothers, stop sleeping with women that are not your wives. It's a very easy and very simple solution. And it's always men that are like, yeah, single women are the problem. But yo, I'm saying though, I done just smashed a couple. Yo, you see her, look at her, she a baddie. Yeah, I smashed that. Ooh, look at what this one, she a baddie. Yeah, I smashed that. Like, stop it.
Well, so Robbie, so I didn't want to go here, but if you bring up that point, then we have to bring up paternity fraud, because there were a lot of women who don't let men know that they really aren't the father. So there are some men who are on the hook for being fathers, when the truth is, like statistically around the world, 30% of men are fathering kids that don't belong to them. Not to mention, some women don't let men know that they are pregnant because it's a one-night stand. So I think if we're going to say that part, which is true, we got to bring in the other points as well, that paternity fraud is real. Sometimes men don't know, and that women have a responsibility as well in their reproductive rights. They have a responsibility too. What do you say to that?
Right. Women definitely do have a right in their reproductive rights. But I tell you what, I ain't never seen a woman except for the Virgin Mary get pregnant or give birth to a child without a man depositing his semen in her vagina. So even the paternity fraud will miraculously increase. Even, oh my God, I didn't get told about the baby till 10 months after because it was a one-night stand. That would dramatically increase. The key word in what you said is one-night stand. If you're sleeping with a random woman that's a one-night stand, and 10 months later, a year later, you get hit with you owe some child support, that's on you, because you made a poor decision. If you're out here and you as a man say, I refuse to sleep with a woman unless she is my wife, you are not open to anything. The same goes to women too. But that goes without saying, because women, even if they sleep with each other, cannot get each other pregnant.
But is there a point to be made that while it is true that there are a lot of men who do sleep with women who are not their wives, isn't there something to be said that there are a lot of women who have divorced and they're single mothers based off of divorce, not necessarily sleeping with somebody they weren't married to? Isn't there something to be said about this?
39 point.
Robbie, let's get you in there, but Thanos and Mandrell, get in there as well.
Oh, go ahead, Mandrell, because I know she did the stats this week on
this
every
morning
section of single parents, and
this
they
morning
broke it down.
Yeah.
Okay. What is actually your question? What would you like to know?
Yeah, so is there something to be said about that, though, where it's not just men sleeping with women who are their girlfriends, but a lot of these quote unquote single mothers, and I think that term is a little misleading. Isn't it something to be said that a lot of single mothers are the result of a divorce, not necessarily because the man was negligent?
Why are they getting divorced?
No, that's not the question.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
But I mean, isn't there something to be said about that? Because I think the assumption is single mothers, there was a man who was reckless and he walked away. When statistically, if we're going by the numbers, most of the men are active or present in their children's life, particularly Black men.
Well, here's the thing with the single motherhood. There's a difference between responsibility and fault and blame. Responsibility, since the man's supposed to be the leader and all that, he's responsible for all of that. The fault and blame usually goes on both sides. And in this case, when it comes to single motherhood, the fault and blame does fall on both ends. Yeah, the guy went in her and was irresponsible by not being protected. However, the woman has to take blame too, because she participated willingly. And she knew the guy was going unprotected. Especially, well, I'll say especially for the women who do know. Some guys are up to some nonsense and tell the woman, I'm going to use contraception, but really don't. That does happen too. However, for the big picture here, the woman is a willing participant. She ends up being inseminated, and next thing you know, she's with child and she's giving birth. So the fault and blame falls on both ends on this equally, in my opinion, except for the case of the guys who take advantage of women.
Yeah, so here's what I say.
Yeah, but that's the fault and blame on both ends on that.
That's a fair point, and I think we could agree on this. So here's what I say to this, and we got to move on. So if you were married, you were in a different category. If you're married and this you get divorced, it's a different category. And I don't think anybody, a woman should be able to label herself as a single mother if this is the result of a divorce. She's just a single woman with children.
Right.
Single mother was somebody who wasn't married. So I think we gotta change
No.
that just a little bit. Absolutely, we
No.
do. And the
No.
reason why, hold on. Let me tell you the reason why this is important is because there are too many good fathers who are there, who as soon as she says, and whether we want to pretend like this or not, the connotation is, if she's a single mother, the assumption is, where's the father? Right? He must not be there. He must not be active. So we have to change this language for two things. One, so that the narrative about good fathers and active fathers don't go blemished because of what some bad fathers do. And then two, so that we establish with the kid that just because a woman is single does not mean that the father is absent. So we got to change it for that purpose.
Okay, so if you share the screen that I just shared with you,
I'm not sure what it is, so I like to know what it is before I share it. What is it?
it's statistics from the United States Census Bureau in regards to how the division of the 80% of single mothers are actually meted out. 51.4% of women that are single mothers have never been married. 29.3% of single mothers account for being divorced. 15.6 are separated and 3.6 are widowed. Now, again, you guys make sure you go check out the content that I dropped this morning, because when we start looking at the actual categorization of single mothers, they actually have stipulations and categories within the United States Census Bureau for cohabitating parents that don't live in the same home. The reason why a household is labeled a single parent household is because when you file your taxes and you file head of household, if you are married, you file married, filing together, married, filing separately, or single head of households. And the single head of households are 80% of the mothers. It is never about diminishing the fathers. And that is the emotional component that people add to the conversation, instead of just really being logical and looking at the data and the actual statistics.
So while you present those numbers, it's really easy to massage it to fit our own narratives. But the truth is, from a society perspective, men didn't attach that negative connotation to single motherhood. Women did. I'll tell you how they did it. As soon as you see, let's say you see a woman who has a child, for whatever reason, let's just say she gets a degree or she starts a business. You don't hear a successful Black woman starts a business. You don't hear a woman who graduated, and she has a business. You hear single mother graduates and she defies the odds. You see single mother, loses the weight. Why? Because from a marketing perspective, we know that if you attach single motherhood, the bitter women who didn't have a sustained relationship, or those who don't believe that they need a man, will attach themselves to that, and it feeds into the negative stereotype that fathers are not absent. That's really what it is.
And you see, and this is why I say that the community focuses too much on the negative.
But no.
Because,
so
wait,
let's go here. Hold on, so let's go here.
My point? Where are we going? Because I didn't even finish my point.
Yeah, so I want to come at that. So I understand why we say that the community focuses too much, but I think when we say too much about this particular issues, when we hear too much, we don't address it at all. We act like it doesn't exist. So I want to say that before you go with your point.
So like how I was getting ready to say, because this is a thing that people often do on these panels, as soon as you start saying something, they want to jump in to try to derail the point that you're making. The point is this.
I didn't get your point. I was stating a point, but go ahead.
If 82.6% of households in the United States are married families, and when you go watch the content, you'll actually see that the number of single parent households is steadily on a decrease. The number of married households is steadily on an increase. If the majority of women are actually, in fact, married in intact relationships, what bitter women are attaching themselves to the marketing tactic, which is created by a system of WS, that, the single mother. Like that's the part that makes it crazy. That's the part where insanity ensues. There are all of these narratives and negative connotations attached to something that is in fact disingenuous and lacks integrity in journalistic reporting.
That sounds fantastic. But so you're telling me that statistically now that marriage is on the incline for the Black community?
Yes, marriage, children being raised in households is on the incline. Marriage in the African American community is on the incline. And single parenthood has been on the decline for well over 2 decades. But again, people go to blackexcellence.com, they go to pewresearch.com, and then they pull up one statistic based under one level of verbiage, and they don't even really understand the full populace on which that statistic is being generated from. They don't do their due diligence and do the research and look at the totality of numbers of households in America, what the percentage of the population is, and what that number actually represents.
So let me
And
ask you
it's
guys a
ridiculous.
question. Let me ask you guys a question. So if Robbie is correct, and I fundamentally disagree with what you're saying, but if what she's saying is correct,
Okay.
and we're on the incline, then why are there so many people who are saying I don't want marriage today? More so than ever. Less people are having sex. Less people are getting married, and if they are getting married, they're getting married very, very later in life, right? 30s. It used to be early 20s. So if what you're saying, Robbie, is facts, then why are there so many people who are against or who are not rushing to get married today, specifically college educated women, if what you're saying is correct? Let's start with Mandrell, and then we'll circle back to you, Robbie.
Okay.
Well, for starters, I mean, it's like what Thanos was saying earlier, too many choices. Okay. Back in the day in the 40s and 50s, and well, let's say 1969 and before. No, let's go to 1980 and before, right? Because it's still like this in the 80s, kind of, you know what I mean? But you saw it really break off, where being married and staying married was your best option to make it in life as well as you can, you know. So you didn't have much of a choice if you wanted to survive. Surviving on your own as a female, it was hard enough as a male, but as a female, not the move, right? Best case scenario is to get married, partner up with someone, and make it as best you can. Combine your resources, make it as best you can. Fast forward to the past 30 years, women have been branching out, getting their education, getting better jobs, higher paying jobs, and now it's to the point where they don't need us financially.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And financially, they can make it on their own pretty well, very well, in fact. So now they're looking at it like, okay, since I can make it on my own, why do I need a guy? And so that's the ultimate question that they have. Why do I need to partner up with someone? Why do I need him around? And the problem is no one's been able to teach them that. Most people can't articulate why it's important to do so,
Mhm.
you know, because what the people of yesteryear did, like our grandparents and our parents, they stayed together mostly out of necessity because they had to. That's the best. Again, that was the best possible outcome. They didn't, and so when things got tough, they stuck it out with one another. They sat there and they figured it out. No matter how bad it got, and believe me, in a lot of these households that we think are so good and they're great, it got pretty freaking dark. But they stayed there and they were forced to stay there together and figure it out. They don't even realize how they did it though. So they can't teach the next generation how to figure that out and how to weather the storm together. They're not teaching that. What the women have been teaching them is, girl, get you an education, get you a good job, so you ain't got to put up with no man. You have to depend on a man. Now, on the one hand, that's a good message. You don't want to have to depend on someone else. You don't want to be in a position where you're codependent. On the other hand, if you do get a guy, they're not teaching you how to stay together. No one's teaching the girls nor the boys how to do that.
See,
There's
that's the part I disagree with.
Oh,
And
okay.
and so we're gonna circle back. Let's put a pin to what Mandrell just said, and actually that's going to segue into our next topic. But before we do this, Thanos, did you have thoughts on this before we move on?
Yes, when you initially asked the question about the single mothers, were you asking from the social part of it, like far as everyday people, what they think?
Yeah,
'Cause I
just
understand we had the
generally,
stats, but
It is generally it's a reason why
Okay.
I didn't pull up a PowerPoint today. If we do this, it's easy to argue stats, but when you start
Right.
drilling down to these things, the conversation is a bit different. But yeah, so this is just more general.
Okay, yeah. So the reason I was shaking my head at that point was because I feel that the respect is withheld. Like when I go see my boys and I meet some of their friends or teachers, whatever like that, I don't like the fact that it's a shock that I'm there. Like it's like we're at a point where it's so common for single parent homes that it's a shock that the father's still in the life engaged in the kids' education because they don't see you every day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
yeah.
what Thanos just said, I'm going to segue. You keep on going because the question is the inverse of what I just asked moments ago. So I asked, are we too focused on single mothers? Now, here's the thing. Are we too focused on absent fathers and fatherlessness? So this is the opposite question. Now, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that in line with what you were saying. So so we answered, are we too focused on single mothers? Are we too focused on absent fathers and fatherlessness? What's your thought on that?
You want to go ahead, Robbie? Or
no, it's on you, Thanos.
Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, it's definitely a big focus because I don't think there's research done on that. I don't know if it's because no one cared to do it or it's kind of hard to pinpoint how much a father is there or not. So I think that would be the next thing to tackle as far as for Pew or anybody else to do that research, because depending on how certain mothers feel, they may let the narrative be known that, oh, he's not there, even though he's supporting them financially and taking the kids, but she may just be upset at him that week. And I'm only speaking because I've seen it several times, not just with me, but with others. But I'm not saying majority, of course.
Let me ask you a question, Robbie. I want to start with you. This is just off, but we'll circle right back to this question. Do men have the right to complain?
Sure, everybody has the right to complain. I mean, I guess, but as a leader in my community, I don't have time for conversations that don't bear fruit. I don't have time to be worried on, problems that's not going to resolve without actually fixating on a solution. But I'm just a woman, so I can't teach y'all nothing, So you got to tell me, do men have the right to complain? I can't tell you what a man can do. I'm a woman.
Well, that response is kind of a response, but I'll leave it there. Mandrell, do men have the right to complain?
Again, everyone has the right to complain, but people like me aren't going to listen to your complaints. I'm going to listen to you identify an issue with me, and I'm going to talk to you about developing a solution to it. And what you do after that is up to you. But I mean, if all you're going to do is sit around and complain, which is what people in, I don't want to say this sector because I don't include this channel in that sector of YouTube, but
I know what you mean,
the fight club. I'll call them the fight clubs and all that. All you're doing is sitting there complaining. You're a waste of time, and I don't engage in those conversations because they're a waste of my time. So, do you have the right to complain? Yeah, you got the right to complain, but you're not getting anywhere like that.
So let me take what you just said and just offer some perspective. So let's say you go to a particular restaurant and you pay good money to get into this restaurant. So this ain't Arby's. This ain't, you pay a little bit of money. You have to make some reservations to get in. And, when you go there, you order some food and you say, I want my steak medium. I want mashed potatoes. I want some mushrooms on top of that. And then I want some asparagus. And they bring it out to you. They bring the food, but the food is not served on a clean plate, and the vegetables are cold and the steak is well done. If you complain and the waiter says to you, well, hold on, I brought your food out. I don't want to listen to you complain unless you have a solution. How do you respond to the waiter bringing you what you asked for in a manner that's worthy of a complaint?
Okay. Here's a solution. I'd like you to take this back to the back because I'm not going to eat this. This is not what I asked for. I want you to cook my meal the way I suggested, and I want a full refund, and I don't want to pay for this. Okay, you're gonna do it for free. That's the solution.
Mine is a little different.
Well,
you're gonna cook my food the way I want it cooked.
I'm leaving the restaurant.
Well,
because I'm not letting you take my food in the back and come out with something magical and some extra seasoning.
Right.
See that would be the best answer for.
So hold on. So Mandrell, to your point though, the reason I bring this up is because in your solution, you can't have solution without problem. And I think that what we try to do with an issue that's multivariate is we get conversation fatigue. And so because we're tired of talking about something, we don't want to talk about it anymore. Instead of realizing that just because we're tired, other people are living what we're talking about, right? And so part of the solution is taking some time, like you've explained. I want my food done this way. Here's what I expect. And then you give the waiter enough time to hear what you're saying and then to go back and do it. I think this is what the Black community needs. So we've gotten conversation fatigue. We don't want to hear nothing no more. As soon as we hear complaint, we like, where's the solution at? And
Well,
I
that's not
think
the
that we
case.
have to, and I'll say this in this last part. I think the other part of this is depending on what age, what gender you're at, will limit how we'll listen to you. So if we have a woman who's chiming in on issues that's deemed masculine, well, she can have a perspective on this, right? Or if a 25-year-old is speaking about issues, well, because he's not 40, he doesn't know anything. And this is why I say the issue is multivariate. And until we all leave space for us all to come together and rightfully say our complaints in a respectful environment, then I think we're going to continue having these discussions, not because we want to, but because we're not humble enough to hear each other. What do you guys think about that?
Hold on. That's not what I want to be clear. If I could, Murabi, because I want to be clear about this, because people misunderstand me all the time. All right, listen, you can do something once or twice. That's fine. 3 times is a pattern. Now you're predictable. If all you do is come up on a panel and point out problems and talk about problems and talk about that problem and talk over and over and over again, that's no longer a conversation.
So let's widen the scope.
Hold on, let me finish.
Let's widen the scope though.
Hold on, let me finish.
Because I want you to keep on cooking, but I want to widen the scope though. So we're not talking about YouTube. We're talking about in general. We just happen to be
in general as well.
Yeah, it's
I'm
about
talking in general as well. I mean, like I said,
say.
if you keep saying the same thing over and over, it's no longer a conversation. It's no longer a conversation. Nothing's been done, and you keep talking about the same thing. Okay. Right. Eventually, yes, you have to sit down. All right, let's fix this because I'm tired of hearing you talk about this, or I'm tired of hearing the same conversation. Let's fix it so we don't have to address it anymore. It's fixed, it's done. You know what I mean? If no one is doing that, then there is no leader. And I'm pointing, this goes to the title of today's show. There is no leader. Like you say, the title of the show is The Followers Are Leading. There are no followers who are leading. Followers don't lead. It's just a bunch of followers doing what they want to do. That's why everything seems so confused, convoluted, confused, and mixed up. No one's leading. No one's pointing anyone in any direction. And the followers don't want a leader. That's the ultimate problem. That's the big picture. The followers don't want a leader. They want to do what they want to do. And so how do you untangle that mess?
So I'm just gonna say this.
That's the big question.
One thing, Robbie, and I've been told that certain men don't want to be leaders. They will tell you, "I'm not a leader."
Yeah, a lot of men don't want to lead. They don't want the responsibility. But here's the thing, though. It's weird because like there are people like anyone who enjoys power should never have it. You know what I'm saying? Anyone who enjoys power should never have it.
Wait, guys. We got to go back. We got to go back. So I think we have to clarify. Right, so when we talk about leadership, we speak about this in such broad terms that let me just speak on behalf of men for just a few seconds. Now, I'm a man, and I disagree with Mandrell. I want power. I want influence.
You've never had it.
Yeah. So no, I do. So.
I say you might want it, but you've never. If you want it, you've never had it.
Mandrell, listen to what I'm saying. I wanted power in my community, so I became part of it. I wanted power over my finances, so I took control of it. I wanted power over and influence over how my children were raised, so I took authority of it. So yes, you can if you want it. It's all about having. Hold on, just listen. It's about having character when you have it, and I think that what we're not teaching enough is character. But before we get to this, so think about this. In the Black community, if a man does not make a certain amount of money, he's not a leader. If a man is not a certain build or a certain look, he's not a leader. We're so fluid in what we deem as a leader that, again, this is not how I feel. But can you imagine young men who have grown up and all they've heard is negative things about men aren't crap, men are not fair, fathers aren't absent, I had to do it by myself. Can you imagine the sheer amount of pressure it is to be a leader? That first of all, you don't have the solid foundation because you didn't have the opportunity to have that masculine presence and develop that, and now you're shouldering stuff. And every move you make, as soon as she gets upset or the community gets upset, well, suddenly you're not a leader. Can you guys? I'm not asking you, do you agree? But can you guys understand how some men and why they would say that they don't want to be a leader?
No.
From what I understand about leadership.
Hold on, I'm going to say this to you. Okay. And this is why a lot of young men won't talk to certain men of a certain age, because so for me, I'm not saying this at you guys, I'm saying this for us, is that unless we're able to understand where people are coming from, unless we're able to understand the context in which they've developed, we're going to give them goals without understanding what they have to work through to get there. And so while Mandrell and Thanos theories, while I definitely respect the men that you are, if we're going to be leaders, leaders account for different people's experiences. And it's up to us to provide structure for them to get where we believe that they can be. Do you guys agree to this?
Of course you do.
No,
You account for
yeah.
people's experiences. However, the reason why we don't understand why you don't, well, I'll say
Excuse
this.
me.
Do I understand why a person would say no? Yes. To no to leadership? Yes, because they don't know anything. They don't know any better. They've never been taught how to follow,
That's
let
fair.
alone
That's
taught how
fair.
to, let alone being taught how to lead. And let's be honest, no matter how much, there's some people out there, no matter how much training they get, they should not be in charge of anything. Like when you could say an election year is coming up pretty soon, right? Keep this in mind, people. No one who has the temperament to win the campaign should be in charge of anything. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Mandrell, are you focused on the problem right now?
I'm
And not the solution?
focused on it. I'm focused on that was a solution.
Okay.
Watch out for the person who has the best temperament to win a campaign. Don't vote for that person.
Okay, listen.
That's the solution. But anyway,
Robbie has been here. I don't want her to feel like we're mansplaining. I don't want her to feel this. Robbie, you had a thought. What would you like to say?
Y'all not mansplaining nothing. Y'all just talking. At the end of the day, right? Back to the analogy that
Robbie.
Mandrell meant. Wait. Now you're gonna interrupt me too? Can I get my point
On
now?
the Sir Hell Speak
I mean, I
Show.
could just sit here and be pretty. I can. I do it very well.
You do.
Now,
You
now
do
hold
it
on,
very
hold on,
well.
hold on. Now, hold on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on the Sir Hell Speak Show, guys, we aim for the deepest level of respect, and we're going to make sure that we respect each other on this panel and in the chat as well. So we're going to give Robbie an opportunity to give her thoughts uninterrupted, and we're going to show some respect. All right, Robbie, it's on you.
Thank you, kind sir. I appreciate your leadership. Listen, this is the thing. When you go in a restaurant, you know, you don't tell the people that you want them to remake your food because they're going to give you poison food. The same thought applies when it comes down to women. You don't tell women that want to behave a certain way, the playbook and the blueprint on what it is that they need to do to be accepted by men of valor, stature, and status. You let women weed themselves out by the merit of their works and their deeds. When it comes down to leadership, leadership is not something that you can opt out of. You're a leader as a man because that's what God said you are, because that's how you were born. I mean, this is what we hear all the time when they want to disrespect and diminish a woman's role in leadership. No, you cannot be a leader because you came from the rib. Well, if we came from the rib, then you don't get the authority to say, well, I don't want to lead. That's not how any of this works, Jake. You got to be quicker than that.
Well, hold
Now,
on.
when
So
we
these
talk-
are just this is just talking.
I knew it wasn't gonna last. I had a good run, guys.
No, Robbie. So I'm trying to understand the point you're making. So you're saying because women came from a man's rib, that this qualifies them to be a leader? I'm trying to understand what you're saying there.
Yes, this is the talking point because this is what we're talking about on this panel, right? We're talking about talking points. We ain't talking about real life. We're talking about how people feel comfortable with the talking points that they have been brainwashed with.
Do you believe that women are qualified to tell a man how to lead?
Yes. Women are your helpmeet. Women are put here by God to tell you when you are not on your purpose and you are not doing what's right.
Well, let's do this real quick. So I want you to tell me the 5 things, just really quickly, 5 things, 60 seconds, what every man should do to be a leader. 5 things.
I cannot tell you that. And I done told y'all this 50 million, 100
Wait,
times. And I say this.
whoa. So you just said women are qualified to tell men how to be leaders. And I'm asking you from a woman's perspective, I'm not asking you to be correct per se. I'm asking you for, in your mind, what are 5 ingredients for being a successful leader in the eyes of women?
No, see, this is what I want you to understand. And I say this on every panel because I mean this to my core. This is a principle that I stand on. I'm not going to tell the worldwide internet what I view as a leader.
Robbie,
Because wait a minute.
I'm going to circle back to the question. I want 5 ingredients it takes to be a leader. Then I'm going to ask the same thing to the fellas as well. But I want that answer. 5 things.
So, like I said, and I am not going to tell you what I view as a leader because just like the analogy with the restaurant, can I finish? Okay.
So let me stop you there. So there's a single mother who is watching this, and she's trying to figure out what a man is as well. Like she wants, because she wants to give her son some information. And you have the opportunity from a mother's perspective to offer 5 things as to what you, because you're researched, you're in the community, and so you are a point of somebody that people can trust. She's looking for 5 things on the World Wide Web. 5 simple things. Not 5 things that you would like for yourself, but just general things that constitutes leadership.
Again, like how I said, I'm not that customer in the restaurant that is going to give you.
So I want to say you're refusing to answer the question. I want to be sure.
That's what I said. I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay,
if the
so
ladies want to know,
let me get to the fellas
membership on my
Let me get to
channel.
the fellas first. Mandrell, 5 things that leadership requires. Just 5.
Competence, discipline, integrity, experience.
I think that may have been 4 things. You have a 5th?
Yeah, you just asked me to come up with this off the top of my head.
Okay, good. So we'll let you pause.
So the last one, empathy.
Okay, good. Thanos, what about you? 5 things.
I had 60 seconds, dude.
Yeah,
Come on.
Thanos, what about you? 5 things for a competent leader. And if you're talking, you're on mute. Yeah, Thanos, you're on mute.
The first one has come off mute. Discipline, integrity, critical thinking, steadfast, honorable.
Excellent. So, guys, here's why I brought this up, because it's so easy for us to say what a leader should be, but even us men who've been leaders for some time, we got to take some time to really think about what leadership is. Now, this is with experience. This is with being a leader. I'm saying, how much more difficult is it for young men who didn't have your experience, who don't have your foundation to figure this thing out? Can you imagine why they don't want to be leaders? Because as soon as you say you're not, then you're weak as a man. You're too emotional as a man. You're the problem for this. This is why I brought this up, and this is why to Robbie's. Say it again, Robbie.
Are men not allowed to have emotions?
Yes, we are.
Oh.
Now, I do want to show you how it was. So you say you asked me a question and right answer. 5 things that constitutes leadership.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I'm a woman, I don't know.
And that is actually what I was looking for you to say. I don't think women are in position to tell men how to be leaders because women really don't know. That's really what I was looking for.
You realize I was being fully sardonic. I do have an answer. I do have an answer, and I do know what leaderships are. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna give you 5 just to make you feel good. I'm gonna give you 5.
Hold on, Robbie. So even as such, I asked the question several times, and you didn't give a response. And my belief system is, even with you, is being educated and somebody, I respect you. I talk to you in real life. I really respect you. Women don't know even as much as you, right? So let's say I believe you know what a leader is, but most women don't. And it's most of the women who are trying to dictate what a leader actually is. And this is why I believe it's important for men not to get their definition of what a leader is from women. It takes other men who emulate these things to provide that definition. Would you agree with this?
Well, this is the thing. Actually, I would. And I think if men spent their time actually teaching leadership skills to men wouldn't even wind up in the predicament to have single mothers, because that would go against fundamentals and principles and ideologies set in place by other men. In all actuality, I think these conversations are best had at a kitchen table. They aren't for the public at large and ad nauseum. I think women should be teaching women and men should be teaching men, but men are too busy running their mouths on women that they don't qualify for and they can't get. I'm confused.
Now, so I hear that talking point. Men are talking about women that they can't get. Most of those women who men can't get have faces paint full of makeup, have behinds that don't belong to them, eyelashes that they pay for at the store, filters on Instagram. So I think you're right in the idea that men are going for women, but those women don't even like themselves. So I think there's something to be said about that as well. And I think that speaks to the culture we live in today.
Exactly. Men don't like themselves either, because
that's what I was going to say.
Those type of women.
There were some men who feel the very same way as well. Yeah, so it goes both ways. So there's something to be said about that. All right, guys. So the last thing that I'll ask I've got one more question that I want to ask you. So, is marriage the solution to the decay of the Black community? Now, I'm asking this question because whenever we talk about relationships and marriage, most people say that married people are trying to force marriage on people. And I want to ask you, from your perspective, is marriage a solution? Let's start with Thanos.
For me, it still is. But to be honest, with the expanding rights of women being able to go in areas they didn't go before, they're going to corporate, military positions that open up that wasn't open to women before. We're in a new time, and it's still an adjustment period. So trying to use traditional marriage, where I see more people falling away from Christ, and the whole sanctuary marriage is built off it. I'm seeing a lot of pushback from the younger generation, men and women, of what's the benefit of getting married. I think we're just in a time where we've never been. Like, usually women had to count on men because they had no other choice. But once again, they have just as much choices as we do. So even with me coming with money, that may not be enough for the right woman because she has money. So it's going to be something else I have to bring to the table. But if men still stay in that, I'm traditional and I want that situation I see on TV or what my parents had before, I think it's going to, until we get used to this, and I don't know how long it's going to take or what kind of disaster is going to happen, but that those days of women needing men for the all around, I think it's going to take two people just to say, hey, I want to be married to you, and she wants to be married to him. But far as the way we looked at marriage before, I think that is gone.
So just very succinctly, so if your child asks you, are you a proponent for marriage or no? Your answer is?
My personally, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, Mandrell, what about you? So is marriage the solution, and are you a proponent for it?
Marriage is not the solution. It is a solution.
Right.
There are many solutions to this issue. Marriage is not the only one and only solution, not the end all be all. I do approve of marriage. I think it is a solution for those who want it. It can be a solution for those who want it, But for some people, they don't want marriage. They don't see the point. Or it's just flat out something it doesn't fancy them. They don't fancy, So it is a solution, not the solution. And I think a lot of married people who try to educate and counsel single people need to keep that in mind. Marriage is a solution, not the solution.
So second solution, if marriage is one of them, what's the second and the third solution?
A second solution would be to cohabitate. You know what I'm saying? And the third solution would be co-parent in that situation if you have children together. But you don't have to be married to do either one of those.
Or be in a relationship.
Exactly. What I found is most people married or not just simply don't know how to be in a relationship. They have no idea what they get themselves into when they get into it. They get into a marriage or a relationship and they want to do what they want to do still. No, there's a lot more to it, but that's a whole nother video.
Right. They're best friends having kids together.
Yeah, there's too much nuance to get into that in this one video, But most people don't know how to be in a relationship. But another solution would be learn how to cohabitate. Learn how to get along. Learn how to consider the other person.
I'm hearing you guys, but this to me, I'm going to get Rob B's perspective, but this to me sounds like poor people's conversation. And I'm going to tell you why that is. If you go back and you look through history,
but you heard I say yes. You heard I say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's what I mean by this: it's only the poorest of people who don't see the benefit of marriage. Even in older, here's what I'm saying. Even in older times, we saw marriage as a way of not just blending finances, but blending culture. We weren't just doing this for the sake of our now. We were doing this for the sake and legacy of our kids. And it seems like in our contemporary society, we've replaced matrimony with just money, right? As long as I got some money and some stuff, I'm great because I can get through life. And we have no foresight to think about the world we're going to leave behind for our children. Do you guys see that as a problem? Let's start with Rob B. And then I want to circle back to this. Do we see that as a problem?
I mean, I see it as a problem that fathers are not in the home to start with because they never marry people's mama. So what I think is children, actually not even what I think, what I know is Children are a reflection of the environment that they came up in. Nobody felt it was necessary to be married through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, the 2020s. People are starting to get their mindset together because they're not being followers. Sheep's being culled for the slaughter. People are getting their mindset together. But what they are constantly berated with every single day is why they aren't good enough, why this is a problem, by people that participate in the same behaviors that they knock. It's disgusting, really. But of course, people should do what makes them happy. If you don't want to be married, then don't have children, because the statistics are staggering at the devastation that could happen in a single parent household. So don't do it.
Are you being sarcastic, or are you saying this in disagreeing with what Mandrell said?
I'm saying this in agreement with what Mandrell said.
Okay,
marriage
so
is not for everybody.
Okay, gotcha.
But if you're going to be single, don't compound the issue by bringing children into the equation unless you are very much prepared to raise them. That is the issue. People are not bringing children into the world because they plan for them, because they want them, because they love them, because they have a trajectory and they're thinking 20 steps ahead for their future. People are going to the club, having sex in the club, in the bathroom stalls. Oh my God, oops, there's a baby. Then if women decide to go ahead and delete the child, they're vilified for that. So women are actually put in a position, if they delete a baby, it's a problem. So much so that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and gave the power back to the states. If a man goes out, though, and just sleeps with a woman on the dance floor and gets her pregnant, well, Bob's your uncle and clap him on the back. This is a problem in the community. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't be a flip-flopper. Don't be a flip-flopper. If marriage is what you stand for, then everybody in your circle should be married, and everybody that is not, on principle alone, you have to get rid of. Period. If you're single and you're out here and you have single friends that are out here having babies hither and yon, on principle, they should be excommunicated from your circle. But the reality is, a lot of people talk money. And when it comes right down to it, and you look at their closest 5 friends, honey, their closest 5 friends is hoes in these streets, male and females, got kids all over the place, and they cool with it. They just want to critique strangers that they have no influence over. You want to know what leadership is? Leadership is your sphere of influence. Who you influencing? Whose life have you changed? If you ain't doing that, then be quiet. Stop telling other people what to do, and you can't even influence the first 5 people around you. Facts all day.
Well, so that's not necessarily a very accurate argument. So while leaders wield influence, just because you have influence doesn't make you a leader. So I understand your point, but it's not necessarily accurate when it comes to that. The other part, though, the other part to what you said, I'm not sure what you advocate for. So just for you particularly, are you an advocate for marriage, and do you believe that let's say not 100%, if you can give it a percentage out of the 3 solutions that Mandrell provided, what would you rank it? Is marriage if we did this, the possibility of us helping to improve our community, I think I would give this 50%. And what would you rank that with the 3 solutions Mandrell gave?
To improve our community?
To improve our community, yes.
31%.
So by that, so we're saying that just cohabitating and being single in a relationship is better than marriage?
What I'm saying is, Sir Halen, you know this. You know the principles that I stand on.
No, earlier you said you had a problem with me assuming, and saying what your points would be. So I'm asking you to clarify.
No. I was actually in the process of saying that because I know people in your audience right now have not been here when we've had certain conversations. My principles are this. To improve the community, it's politics, it's power, and it's property. Then it's family. Because if you don't have any power, what are you bringing families into? Policies that are set to make sure that our community remains downtrodden? We don't even own land and property. You know who owns, well, maybe some of you don't know. The person that owns the majority of agricultural land in the United States of America is not anybody in our community. This is a problem. But we so busy worried about single motherhood.
No. I want to keep focused because we're talking about marriage. I want to talk about marriage.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about. People that get married, usually get married to combine forces. Like how you said, it's a cultural blending. It's about people with money.
No. But before we move on, I'm trying to understand what you said. So I gave in the opportunity to give a
What I'm
percentage.
telling you is people
Oh,
are
let me
too
finish.
poor in the Black community. So
let me
it's a
finish.
pointless endeavor.
So let me clarify. So Mandre gave 3 solutions, and 31% for marriage. So based off of what you just said, at the end of what you said, it to me is more sensible that when two people come together, that their ability to earn more and produce more, that combined effort does more. In organizational behavior, we know this, right? The sum of a team can produce greater output than the most intelligent person. So marriage helps to multiply this. So this is why I'm kind of confused with you saying that the least, that marriage has the least amount of impact with turning the community around. I'm not understanding that.
So let me break it down to you. If I could have, a few minutes without the interjections. So like how you said, this conversation about marriage, right? And not getting married, that's a poor person's conversation. When we look at the demographics and the statistics related to income in the United States of America, Black people per capita are the furthest behind in economic resources. They're just shy of Hispanic people, who even overtake us. So the fact that only a small percentage of us, about 30%, make enough money to actually raise and sustain a family, it's irresponsible of people in the community that have not got their lives together, that are not on the right track to marry. What are we doing? Marrying on social programs, which is the narrative that's spun so that everybody in the household is on social programs together. What do? Marry when the average median income for the impoverished families in America is under $50,000. And if they wind up marrying together, they might hit 60, which will deny them access to some programs that are actually helping to facilitate their family's growth and development in the community. See, there are multi-factors that go into play with this, and they all start with the politics and the policies. But, what do I know? I'm just a woman.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, but you're not necessarily answering my question about that. But we'll move on.
I did answer your question. You just don't like the answer that I gave because it's not one that you can wrap your mind around.
Robbie, so here's what we're going to do. I respect you. You're going to respect me as well. So I'm speaking to you with respect. All that, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk with respect.
All of what?
Robbie, all of that extra energy, right? So
all of what extra energy?
Robbie,
every time I've spoken,
Robbie, listen. I don't want to have to get out of character with you, but you already know there's a lot of energy. So, and I'm trying to keep it cool. Yeah, so let's keep it cool. All right.
I am keeping it cool. This is really not a lot of energy, and I know you may want me to get triggered and give you energy back.
Robbie,
but the reality,
Robbie, stop. We're not going there.
The reality is, people
Robbie, stop and just Robbie, stop and listen. Robbie, stop and listen. I'm not going to do this. You already know that I respect you, and before I make you look bad, I would try to get us off the conversation. We're not going to go there. So stop. All right. So my question is about marriage. If we're advocating for marriage, then what is the solution? So the 31% is, it's less than cohabitation by itself and just being in a relationship and not having kids. So I'm trying to clarify, because moments ago you said that marriage is on the incline. And so reconciling with what you just said, are you suggesting that people are getting married simply because they don't got money, and that these people who are getting married are just above poverty as married couples? Is that
they're in position? Poverty as married couples. They're in poverty, creating impoverished youth, which is a stain on the community. So again, like I said, if you don't have,
it's interesting you say that, because when I look at the statistics, and I'll end up doing a show where we really crunch the numbers, just by fathers being present, the rate of homelessness and poverty, it changes significantly with the presence of a man there. And I think one of the unspoken points that we don't talk about is a lot of us live in poverty, not necessarily just because we're not making enough money. I think there's some points to be made about this as well. But our hyper-consumption on consumer goods, we buy cars we can't afford. We buy homes that we can't afford. We're buying jewelry. We spend lots of money on fast food. Take a look at the hair industry, the stuff we spend money on. We're not really great stewards of our resources. And this could be due to education or exposure to different things. So I think what you're saying is great when you just put it out there. But when you examine that, there are some factors in there that we have to consider. Would you guys agree with that?
I think that's hyperinflation, again, of a talking point. Because when we look at the economy and we look at what the cost is for housing, when we look at what the cost is for utilities, when we look at what the cost is to feed a family, the reality is this. The talking points that people make is that we waste our money on materialism. And sure, some people do. Only a very few people can even afford the resources to waste their money on materialism. The reality that people refuse to look at is the way the policies and politics have been set up in our community well before the civil rights era, which at a rapid pace, those decisions are being overturned by the Supreme Court justices. We cannot afford to be having families. Black people need to stop having children. Black people need to get it together and get some power and establish a foothold.
Wait. So this is, if you listen to what you're saying, you're completely off. All the cultures understand that in order to establish power, you must have children. This is what I'm saying. The conversation we're having, it fits our narratives. But
I got pushback, Sir Hill.
Hold on, listen. You show me any community or society. Hold on, listen, guys. Show me any society or community that believes that they can be successful and sustain power without birthing more children. Show me one.
The LGBTQIA community.
No, we're talking about people who believe in heterosexual marriages, so we're going to stay on topic. I'm asking you. I'm talking about culture. Look at different cultures. Look at different countries. Find me one country who, if they invest in their youth, they're investing in their youth because they understand that that's how you produce greater excellence in that particular country and sustain legacy. Show me one.
But I can show you multiple ones, because it's not just you having children.
Just give me one. Just give me one. Tell me one community, Kuwait, one country.
Saudi Arabia, Germany, trying to get people to have kids, but they pay them.
They're trying to get them to have kids.
Huh?
They're trying to get them to have kids.
Correct.
Why do you think that is?
Asia.
Yeah, the age gap. It's not enough young people.
China.
That's the point that I'm making.
No, but it's a reason why. It's not about just having kids. You have to have
right. That's what I'm saying. So it's not just about having kids. It's about doing what it takes. It's about to sustain legacy.
No.
Where there is no youth, I'm telling you, where there is no youth and there's no investment in youth, the country is going to be wiped out.
No, that is not true. Rob B is absolutely correct on. You can't just have kids.
Are you guys serious right now?
Rules. It's no rules here. If everybody have the freedom to do whatever they want, and you talking about having kids, whether you married or not, they're going to do it wrong.
Hold on, wait. Everybody pause. I need a second to digest this. This is insanity. We are at the place as a Black community that we don't believe that us not only having children, but empowering our children to produce better families is at least a very viable solution to the decay we see in our community. We don't think that having kids is an important factor in this.
Sir Hill,
I'm gonna
just say this. Hold on,
Thanos. They don't have what they had. You got to pay the burying.
Thanos, hold on 1 minute, because I'm gonna just show you how your point is very wrong, and then I'm gonna sit here and rest in my femininity.
See,
now.
So let me explain something with Robbie. You have a man who has not only researched this stuff but lives this stuff, and the point you're after right now is to prove a husband of 16 years, a father of 4, all by the same woman, an advocate for our community. Your entire goal is to find a point that proves that producing better children is not the key to producing a better society, to change the decaying community. This is sad.
So what I'm actually saying, and I get it that you're a dad of 16 years, so this may sound a little hurtful to you, right? But the reality is, this whole entire show, you have talked about how the devastation of the single parent household and the production of children is detrimental to the community. Those children are impoverished. They are in poverty. And what I am saying is, until we can get our community in alignment and on track, people should stop having children and contributing to the problem. But you are so ready to give me pushback, and you are so diligently being willfully ignorant to what I'm saying that you just want to say that I'm wrong. If the problem, if and only if the problem is single children and all of the statistics that come along with the horrible single mothers is the problem, then shut it down.
Or let me give you a different solution. How about mothers be mothers? How about fathers be fathers? How about mentors be mentors? How about we try that? See, the premise that you made is, vasectomy, birth control, that speaks to kids who are not here. I'm talking about kids who already are. So for the kids who are already here, who are in this predicament that we talked about, what do we do for them? Go ahead.
For the kids that are already here, what we do is tell them not to have sex and tell them not to create more children. And then we focus on the leadership, not on the single mothers that already exist, not on the absentee fathers that already exist, not on the single father households that already exist, but we focus on the tenets that actually formulate a strong community, which is always going to be the politics, the property, and the power.
Now,
we were slaves. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Hold on.
Because
hold on, Sir Hale. 1 second.
I keep hearing you throw out stats that's just inaccurate. So 7% of any of the single parent households are led by fathers. And just so you know, the homes that have fathers that are at the head produce as well as children, if not better than is two-parent households. It's only single mothers that produce kids that have these issues that we were talking about earlier. I'm saying this to say it's easy to just rattle off stuff. And I want to avoid doing that. If we're going to bring out a point, just speak on that point.
What statistic did I just say that
you didn't bring up just one? That's just why I said you just rattled off several different things, and that's why I stopped you, because people here, just single fathers. I'm saying fathers, if we're going to bring up that point, produce great children. You can look up the stats for this.
Okay, so now we're going to say it again because you missed it.
She didn't.
No, you just rattled it, and I stopped you at that point.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and tell you goodnight because you're literally putting words in my mouth, and you have a tendency of doing this. And when you go back and you watch the replay, and you see that I did not say a single statistic,
and I'm challenging you on what you're saying.
But you're not, though, because you're just in your mind hearing one thing. What I'm actually saying and what you're listening to is two different things.
You just told me moments ago you can't even tell me what a leader is. Now you're telling me what I'm doing.
No, but she didn't say the stat.
This is interesting.
She didn't state one stat in that last sequence. Not one.
So thank you, Mandrill and Thanos.
We were talking about the children in single fathers, right? Did you say that or no?
What I said was
yes or no.
What I said was no.
Children who live with
that's not what I said at all. That's not what I said at all because you were not listening. What I said is the children are the issue. That we need to stop all of the households,
right.
All of the single parent households, regardless if they're mothers or fathers, all of that, and teach them leadership and teach them the principles of community, the principles of Black pride, Black excellence, and Black power. That's exactly what I said. That's what I said.
Robert, so let me ask you a question. And I know, listen, everybody who's watching this is fiery, but I know these people. I want to ask you a question.
What's up?
If we take how you see things right now, and I'm going to ask each of you guys here, if we take your perspective on community, do you see us getting better and us being more unified? Just your approach, even just in this conversation. We take your points. Are we more unified if we follow Robbie's advice?
We sure are. Look at the civil rights movement. Look at the pre-civil rights movement. Look at how the community being focused on politics, power, and property got us laws passed. Shout out to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Break down things like redlining, Jim Crow, and things that are holding us back as a total unit. You're absolutely right. Focusing on the politics is what changes the community.
So in order to get those laws to pass, let's take what you said. In order to get those laws, and what had to happen first? What was in place to get that push? Go ahead.
It was men not focusing on vagina. It was men actually sitting and meeting with leaders from other tribes. It was men going to sit with presidents and politicians, becoming lawyers and pushing the agenda. It was men that wasn't taking no for an answer. It
Robert,
was men that were putting their life on the line every day.
I'm gonna give you an opportunity.
Uh-huh.
What was in place in order for that power that we wielded to get laws?
What I said.
What was in place?
Exactly what I said. And if you don't like the answer, you don't have to.
So
but I said what I said.
We're talking about families and community.
No, we're not talking about families. I didn't say anything about families. What I said was
I know.
We had men.
This is why I say
power,
that some women are disqualified from giving advice on how to make things better, because family was at the forefront of all this, and that's how we got the momentum to make the push we did.
Well, I submit to you this: men that constantly have the answer but are not producing results in the community are maybe not really qualified to tell people how to be leaders, because the advice they're giving isn't working. Where's the results? I'll wait.
So are you asking this personally? Do I have to run down for you?
I'm asking the question. Do you need clarification? You've already made assumptions.
Here's what we'll do is I'll answer the question, and then if it's okay with you, I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
That's fair.
That's fair.
So is a married man with a wife and a kid, not divorced, no outside children, all kids by the same woman, from poverty, educated, established business owner, coach, right? And sooner there's going to be even deeper. I'm going to be even deeper into this realm of politics. I'm doing this. I'm working on this now. I've contributed to what we have all deemed as necessary for a successful community. No divorces, no outside children. I'm a proponent for marriage, upstanding, job, not upper middle class. I've done all of it. Now I'm asking you, what do you represent besides a job role in your life that if you couldn't represent yourself could be emulated in the people around you?
Well, council, because I'm already in politics, and I actually shape laws for children in the state that I live in. I also work with the American Academy of Pediatrics to make sure that children that have, neurodivergent tendencies are on the right track and that we can reach people in outlying communities. I participate heavily in the Little Rock School District to make sure that we have one unified school district, since this is the seat of Brown versus the Board of Education, where segregation was disbanded. I work heavily in the community. I work in IT. I deal with my children. I raise them. We have a very good co-parenting relationship with their father. My son is neurodivergent, which means he has autism. He's severely autistic on the spectrum. And I still find ways to pour into my community on a daily basis. I am raising children, and even though my son is autistic, he's very bright and intelligent, borderline genius. My daughter as well. Thanos can vouch for that because he's actually heard them several times all day long. See, what I do is not only do I do all of that in my real life, then I come on these YouTube streets and I give people adequate, accurate knowledge. So when I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you about these stats, they may seem a type of way to you, but I have actually already crunched the data, because not only do I crunch the data for fun, because it's a hobby, because I have a science degree and statistics was a heavy concentration, but I also do this in my capacity as I sit on the Governor's Council. So as a whole, the Governor's Council, we look at these statistics to determine where we're going to put the funding to allocate to these children in this state that need help. Any other questions?
Yeah. So if we look at your home life, if we look at how you do stuff at home, could we take how you operate at home, duplicate it in our homes, and find success?
You absolutely could.
Okay. I'll stop there because I could go a little bit deeper, but I'll stop there.
You could. You could.
So
you
my
could.
goal
Because
is,
let's talk about what age did you have your children versus what age did I have my children. See, I didn't birth my children into poverty. I had my children at 32 years old when I already had a degree in nursing, a science degree, and a degree in culinary. And I was married to their father that way. See, when you plan your children and you don't have babies, that's called sovereignty over self. That's self-accountability. That's making great decisions for your future so that your children are set up for success. Now, granted, some people can hit the lottery and make it out of poverty with these oops babies. But yes, a lot more people should replicate my model. Make sure you have your education. Make sure your money's right before you have these children, so you don't ever have to worry about TANF, so you don't have to ever worry about food stamps, so you don't have to worry about Section 8, so you don't ever have to be in the struggle, so that you can hire maids if you need to. You can hire nannies if you ever need to, and your children can get one-on-one therapy sessions, having ABA therapists come to their house every day, which costs a lot of money, getting them devices that they need, which costs a lot of money, honey, making sure that they are well taken care of without a white zaddy or a black one. Yes, follow the blueprint. Get into it. What would you like to talk about? Would you like to talk about my divorce? Because we can. Because my husband is still very much a part of his children's life. Like, how deep would you like to go?
I don't want to have to mute your microphone.
How deep would you like to go?
So, Robbie, so let me tell you why. It'll be very easy for me as a black man to not go. I don't even have to go.
Is this why we get beat?
Robbie, I'm going to be the one to ask the questions. I want you to just listen.
Oh, okay. I want you to
be very easy for me to go off on you, my black sister. It would be easy. But the thing is, when you have somebody you know and you're really upholding the community, my goal is not to make you look bad while I'm saying I'm a proponent for marriage and family. Well, hold on, just listen for a second. The whole goal of this is, if people look at my life and I didn't say a word, and y'all talk to my wife who is college educated. If you look at me who's college educated, you can look at my life, and I'm not the example of being there. I'm the example of how to get there. And if there's anything we need in our community now, is we don't need people telling you to be there or that you should be there. People need actionable steps and examples to emulate and walk after. Now, the truth is, if you ask me that question, I had my first, I got married at 19 and my first child at 20. And from there, at 20 years old, I'm not sure if you were rich or well off, but I wasn't very well off. I did what anybody would do. We worked and we pulled ourselves up out of poverty, just like most Americans have to do. So to make a person look as if they're not there or haven't arrived yet because they had to go through a struggle is not an indication that they should have done something differently, because most self-made millionaires and successful people had to go by way of struggle as well. So when I asked you if we can look at your life and emulate, you speak as if you have already been there. And to a certain extent, I can understand why you would have an audience. But I'm telling you, for most people, they don't need advice on where they should be. They need people like me to show them how to do it.
And again, that would be a deception, because I grew up in poverty as well. I was just wise enough. I was wise enough not to behave in bad behavior. And this is how you see you're mad. You're muted. You've literally muted yourself. You're muted because you muted yourself.
So, Robbie, I gave you an opportunity, and I've given you an opportunity to state your position. It seems as if you wait for me to give you mine, and then you say something in relation to what I said. I'm saying to you very simply, is that people like the way you've projected yourself, not you as an individual. You are why people get frustrated. I'm why people feel like they can go ahead, because you emulate people that people should already be there, and people need me to show them how to actually do it. That's why I asked you about your life.
Okay, right. Now let's get into it. The reality is, people like you make assumptions. Most Black people grow up in poverty. How you get out of poverty is not putting yourself in a position where you're behind the 8 ball before you get out the gate. And what people need to hear, especially the youth that are coming up, is not to put themselves behind the 8 ball. People advocate for marriage when people are in poverty, which also contributes to divorce, because the number one reason for divorces is finances. So why are you getting married to someone when you can't sustain them? And you're having oops babies because you're not being educated and intelligent about your sexual proclivities. Now you're creating children because you married and you in poverty, and then you're going to struggle to get on up. This is not the Jeffersons. We already got enough daggers in our backs as Black people. We have to do better. And I'm not here to coddle nobody. The facts are the facts. Close your legs, all of you. Stop having sex, all of you. If you don't have money to raise a family, then don't have a family. Get your money right.
So, Robbie, so I'll go back and I'll ask you this question, then we're going to pivot. Is marriage a solution or no?
It's a solution for people that can afford to be married. Otherwise, it is not. It is the cornerstone to divorce. Don't do it.
Okay. What about you, Thanos and Mandrell? So we've kind of gone back and forth a bit. Do you guys see marriage as, let's say it's not 100%? If you could give it a percentage, is marriage at least one of the better options for overcoming the decay of our community?
No. I know why I'm getting married, and because of the industry and stuff I work in, and I can afford it. So all those little problems that most people are having now these days, it ain't no get married and then figure it out. I got to figure it out so I can choose a wife she know how to act. But I mean, not know how to act like that if she meet my plan or whatever like that. But I do agree with her. Like, younger people are asking these questions because you said that they don't like to hear older people talk. Well, they're saying, hey, older people, married people, can you show me why? What's so great about marriage? What can I do right now by myself that I have to get married to do? And it's not community based. It's not going to fix the community.
And that's
the mindset. It's going to have to be a
point,
mindset change. Because if you get married and both people still got the wrong mindset, you just got two married. However long they're going to be married, but they still got a bad mindset and they just married.
So I hear what you guys are saying. So, are you married?
I'm divorced.
Okay. Robbie, you're married, right? Mandrell,
no, I'm divorced. I was. And
okay,
I left it.
Okay, Mandrell, you plan to be married, correct?
Yes, eventually.
Okay. So, with all respect, I think you guys should be listening to the married man who's actually doing it. I respect everybody's perspective, but if we really want to figure out how to do it right, to Robbie's point, I'm actually leading in all these areas. So I can't force anybody to hear my perspective, but I'm just saying, if you want to see how it's done, someone who's at least trying to get it right, and I'm not all the way there yet, I got a blueprint, and that's what we do. What we do.
Okay? A quick question. So I don't disagree with you at all, but I even take it to the point of me even leading people to the IT space, getting into the sciences, medical research. I got network connections in government. But when I bring this stuff back to the people that's so-called complaining, that's looking for a better life, they're not listening. So even though you may be 1,000% right in marriage, if they're not going to listen to you, you can have the perfect information all you want. We see it every day, and it's concentrated in this space alone. They say they're playing, but no, these people are lost.
And I agree with what you're saying. I agree with that point, but here's the reason why. See, what we did is we came from a generation that told us what to do, and we were supposed to just figure it out. So do what I say do. Don't ask any questions. And the reason why youth are no longer listening is because just listening without there being an example to follow, that's what we were lacking. And my contention or my perspective is the way we turn this around is we have to emulate, we have to demonstrate, and then we communicate. We speak by our actions, and that's what I'm saying. So
how do you explain your point though, Sir Hell? Because I didn't have that. And that's why sometimes I do get a little hard on people because I didn't have that. What I said was, I think I'm going to have to deprogram myself from the stuff I was taught because I'm not getting the results that I want. So I started looking at other people, asking questions. But you have to put yourself in that mindset to say, hey, I'm going to ask questions. Yes, I'm a man and I may not know all the answers. So from 16 to 27, I was just around the world doing whatever, with women. I wasn't trying to get married, nothing. But I had to stop myself. It's not going to be someone there always to help you out. Of course, yeah, if everybody was doing what they were supposed to and it was example, it'd be better. But I don't give you an excuse as a man. I don't give you an excuse to be able to do that because you got a bad story, and I bet you I can walk 5 feet down the street and get someone in a worse situation than you. So I understand we go through things, but what the information age right now and you don't have no excuse until people say, hey, I did what I wanted to do. I'm taking accountability. Then you'll start to look to say, okay, what can I do to fix my life or to make it better or to get whatever you're getting after?
But
Not
That's all I want to see.
accountability.
do you hear the point?
Yeah.
So you raise a very valid point, right? You do. Like the young people are like, you know what? Until I acknowledge this, I'm not ready for it. But can you release? Isn't it better for a store to be there already, and you might not get any customers, but when you need it, is there? Isn't it better for that? And I'm saying that when it comes to family and doing it right, isn't it better for that example to already exist, even if the kids are not ready to ask that question yet? Isn't it good for it to just be there?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And that's all that I'm saying. So I agree that youth today, they're not listening, but I think it's because we provided a bad example. So good stuff. Mandro, what are your thoughts? And then we're going to move into to our very last thing. To those of you who are just tuning in,
drop off. But,
sure.
Yeah, we have a show.
Sure.
Bye.
Hey, appreciate you guys.
All right,
To
Mandro.
those of you who are just tuning in, be sure to hit the like button and let us know what you guys think about the conversation. Mandrell, I've got one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up. So, are Black men respected as the leaders of the Black community? And what we'll do now is we'll open it up and give people the opportunity to come up here and see if they disagree or agree with the premise of what we're talking about tonight. Mandrell, it's on you.
I think Black men are acknowledged as the leaders by every other culture on the planet except our own. From my observation, the vast majority of Black men don't acknowledge themselves as the leaders because they're not respected by their contemporaries. In this case, the women, and the women are not teaching the kids to acknowledge the Black man as the leader. But everyone else holds Black men, every other culture on this planet holds Black men responsible for it because we are the men and we're supposed to be the leaders. They're not looking at Black women as to why when they look at Black women misbehave on camera or Black children misbehave in a grocery store or something like that. They're not looking at those kids saying, why is that kid behaving that way? And then look at the mother. Not looking at Black women saying, why is she behaving that way? And keep it there. Looking at Black women is why they're misbehaving. And then look at the men. Why is this woman doing this in public? And they look right at us. Why does she have, hey brother, why does she have that much freedom? Like what are you doing? And what kind of ship you running? You know what I'm saying? We have to answer for that, but the youth today don't want to answer that question. They don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be involved. They'd rather not be bothered. And unfortunately we have no one to fault except for ourselves as a collective. It's our mess and we need to clean it up.
Excellent. All right, guys, listen, I think that's going to wrap up our show. Do we have any callers? Did you guys agree with what we talked about? You have a difference of perspective. The link has been dropped for you guys to call in. We'll give it just a few minutes and then we'll wrap up the show. But guys, if you want to call in, the link has been posted. Moderators, please help me out. Let's get that link out there. Mandro, definitely appreciate you coming through with this conversation. I know it's kind of we've talked about this specific thing over the last several years, right? And if you go back into the manosphere, this conversation has been had time and time again. But I think it's important that we approach the same conversations with a different perspective. And as a married man, someone who really believes in family, I believe that it's not only right, but necessary that married people and people who are proponents for marriage offer their perspective in this kind of conversation as well, because people are discouraged at the prospect of families. It used to be when we were growing up, kids would, they would at a very early age, they wanted to have some kids and have a career. Today, kids can't even see that far. And I believe that part of this has to do with the precedent that has been set before us. We didn't provide a good example. Would you agree with this?
Not only did you not provide there are examples out there, but the kids are being taught something different. They're just not being taught really. I remember growing up, my parents are constantly on me about, what are you going to do in the future? What are you going to do when you grow up? You know what I mean? But if you never ask that kid that question, they're not going to think about it. They're just focused on, kids are focused on being kids. They're focused on toys and video games and going outside to play. Life is what it is and life is grand. I don't have to think about that kind of stuff. Mom and dad's going to take care of it. They're the ones paying the bills. But if I wouldn't sat down and talked about, okay, how do you plan on budgeting money? Do you know what a budget is? Here's what a budget is. Here's how you budget money. Here's how you balance a checkbook. Here's a 401k. Here's what a Roth 401k is. If my parents hadn't sat down and talked to me about those kinds of things, I wouldn't have thought about them at that time. It would have been it hit me when I was an adult, when it was time to actually do it, and I wouldn't have known what I was doing. So the kids are not being taught, and a lot of it comes from our community as a whole still has a poor man and poor woman's mindset. You know what I mean? We're focused on what makes us feel good and being comfortable as opposed to preparing the next generation for the hardships that life's going to throw at them, because the hard times are going to come whether you're prepared for them or not. Whether you can't avoid them. Unavoidable, but people focus too much time on teaching their kids to avoid that kind of things, which makes them cowards. You know,
Absolutely.
Women teach kids to manipulate nowadays as opposed to confront. So
Absolutely. So, Medro, so we're gonna wrap up. I want you to give final thoughts. So to a problem, I believe that we do need a solution. So with what we talked about today, the followers are leading, and the reason why this is the title, because it makes you think about it. Like, of course, followers can't lead, but if you look at how we're so easily distracted by when something happens in our community that our attention on what matters goes away. It's a reason why this show is named this way. The leaders aren't leaders, and so by default, it looks like the followers are, and we're just following along. So my question to you is, how do we as men take our community back and not only win the respect, but really start to change the trajectory of where we are, or is it too late?
it's too late. That's the simple truth of it, and that's the big picture. It actually is too late. We're doomed, and there's nothing that any of us can do about it. The thing is, leaders in our community are leading. The thing is, they're just leading the people who want to be led by them. Because a leader's going to do what a leader's going to do. For example, if I have a project, I want to start a company or something like that, I'm going to take steps to start that company. The followers are going to come along and say, hey, that's interesting. I like to invest money in that, or I would like to help you with that. Those people are going to follow you in your direction in the hopes that they get something out of it. You know what I'm saying? So leaders are leading. You just don't hear about them because no one talks about the leaders. People talk about the followers, the gossip, the nonsense, the reality TV. Those are all followers. That's a follower's mindset. Leaders look at that as an entertainment thing only, and most times they don't even bother looking at that because they're not getting anything out of that. They're not learning anything. Leaders love to learn. And if you're a person who doesn't love to learn, you're not a leader. But
excellent.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So listen, what we'll do is I see I got a couple callers. Fi, you'll be up first. Good to see you on the spot. Glad that you're here. I'll bring you up shortly after. But before we do this, shout out to Robbie Privilege. As the show was starting, she gave this super chat. She says, support Black content creators, Black excellent, Black pride, Black power. I appreciate you, Robbie. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the super chat, the love. If you guys have not yet supported the channel, 99 cents, 50 cents, anything, your support is much appreciated. Shout out to Marcus Evans. He says, what up, Sir Hale? You do know that you have an emotional hyena on the panel tonight. Well, listen, I want to refrain from calling our sisters out of their name. Whether I agree with somebody's perspective or like how they act, I believe in giving people courtesy and respect. And if I'm going to say something to them, I want to say it to them. So us fellas, let's make sure that if we are going to refer to our sisters, let's do so with some level of respect. All right, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Marcus. A good brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll bring up let's bring up Tez Defy, and let me pause for a second. Von Bryant, it's good to see you, sir. It's been a long time, but very, very good to see you. Bravo with Sheila, glad that you're here. Belva, good to see you. Adam Blue, good to see you, a member of the channel. Glad that you're here. Lady Navoa, Ian Mills, glad that you guys are here. Osmosis, it's been a minute. Glad that you're here as well. Good to see you guys tonight. All right, Tez Defy from the 5100 podcast is in the building. What's going on, sir? How are you? And what would you like to add to the conversation?
Ooh, Sir Hale, what's going on? How y'all doing? Shout out to everybody.
Shout out to Tez Defy, the 5100 podcast.
Not the solo stream.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much of the conversation you heard, but taking into account what you've heard, what would you like to add?
Just want to add, I think that the title was on point. And the scariest thing is, if they're the followers, where are they leading us? Because where does the leadership come from? The scariest thing for me for years was running away from being a leader, even if I'm called to be one. And I don't know if any of y'all dealt with that as men, but bro, I ran from it from years because I never wanted the ridicule. I never wanted my business, my life, my whatever to be out there. And then you start to see the people around you fall, and knowing that you could have helped, knowing that you could have said something, knowing that all you had to do is say, hey, bro, maybe you shouldn't do this. And this is where I agree a little bit with Raw B is, if you say your circle is your circle and then you watching people fail, you might not want to be surrounded by those people. If you supposed to be a leader, or even if you just a brother, if you see your brother cheating on his wife, you might want to say something to him. If you see him not taking care of his kids, you might want to take something to him. Or say something to him. So the leadership thing got to be taken way more seriously. And I agree, we got to act. We can't just talk. And I know we say that a lot on these panels, especially these panels. But when you look, it's a real world out here outside of YouTube. It's a lot of men, women, and children that need help, that really need guidance, that need a blueprint. And sir, hey, I try my best not to do what you just did, which is I'm a married man with 2 children, all by the same wife. If you want the blueprint of what a marriage is like, come to Testify. But the reason why I don't do that is because I don't want to make it seem like I'm higher than somebody else. And I'm not saying that you did. That's the reason why I pause myself from doing it, because I don't want to off-put somebody by saying, well, I don't believe in marriage to you, so you can't talk to me. Okay, well, maybe I lost this person, but the person that does, come here, come to the source. I got it. I ain't been married 16 years. I've been married a good 3 going on the 26th of this month. But every single problem, every single issue that I have had, I can come to my wife and talk about it. We can talk about it. I watched a family bill. I watched other families, and I was like, that's what I want to be. So if you want to follow that blueprint, come to the people that's actually doing it. So you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
so
if I-
I'll say this, because I got to get to the next call as well.
Okay.
But I fundamentally disagree with you, Taz. And I know what you're saying comes from a genuine place, but let me tell you why. It's only in our community where we are shamed for doing it the right way. It's only in our community where if you do it right, you love a woman. I'm talking about love her. I ain't talking about just having kids, but you love on your woman. You're married to her. You're a proponent for children. It's only in our community where you saying that I did it the right way is shame to other people. In other communities, this is an example. And so this is why I'm a little bit more vocal about my stance. If the world can be vocal about, I can twerk where I want to twerk. If the world can be vocal about, hey, let's promote single motherhood, then certainly as a married man who's been successfully married for 16 years with 4 beautiful kids with my wife, then certainly I can not lower my head and shoulders and bow down to the cultural climate of broken relationships. I think that you and I and other married individuals who are successfully married should take a stand and should not be ashamed to do so.
Gotcha. I got you.
However, yeah, I understand, but you have to understand what Tez is saying, because what Tez is saying is a
I think
fact.
the assumption is I didn't understand. I do. I just don't agree.
I get you, but the thing is, you can disagree all you like. The fact is that people who don't see marriage as a solution, you can't use marriage as a solution for them. You have to find another way, because you're not going to reach that person.
Well, so
Like,
here's
it's just like people. Hold on, like
push
people
back
who,
on that. So
Huh?
I agree with you, but people who won't focus on marriage, they won't listen to me anyway. So I'm going to continue with my message. I'm going to continue with the message, and people have the right to say, you know what, this is great advice. I think I want to hear this, or this is not for me, and they'll find somebody else. But I'm not going to lower the message because other people don't agree with it.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. And because the thing is, for me, I've been able to reach a broader audience because I've had to take my settings and down quite a few notches. You know what I mean? And kind of trying to meet people where they are. My statement was for in the event that you're trying to reach a broader audience. You know what I mean? Because leaders are going to lead even if they're leading by themselves. Even if they're by themselves, like I used the example for that business or whatever that someone puts together and other people come on and join on. He's going to start building that business one step at a time, even if he has to do it by himself. And the other people who come, the other people going to come. Other people going like, oh, he'll never get anywhere with that. blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, this guy's sitting on $1 billion. You know what I mean? And
That's a really good point, Mandrell. I'm just
Yeah.
to that point. I'm just saying, you see how in every other industry, people have marketed Ponzi schemes. People have marketed, I'm going to show you how to become a millionaire.
quick.
Stuff
It's a quick fix.
fake. If they don't have any shame with promoting what's unreal, then us married people, like this whole false humility where I don't want people to feel as if I'm doing so and so by you giving them the manual on at least how to make a more sustainable decision. Taz, we've got to change that narrative because we know your heart. People like us, we're not going around beating people saying, well, you should be ashamed because you're not married. We're doing this from a place of love. And I think that any product that's worth consumers having should be delivered by salesmen who agree with what the product they have. And so the only people who are hesitant are either people who don't believe in their product or people who are ashamed of it. And I don't ascribe to either of those two. I'm proud of marriage and I see the benefit of marriage. On a Spot. She's in the building. On a Spot, you've been on the show for a bit. What would you like to add to the conversation?
I would like to say hey to everybody and also
Shout out to I Am the Single One.
Hey,
how you doing?
Mandrell. And
Nice,
shout out
yeah.
to Testify and happy anniversary. Congratulations on that.
Thank
and to
you.
Lady Helen, the mods, and everybody. Love everyone. So
Appreciate
I wanted to actually commend you on your leadership, Sir Hale, because I am totally inspired by that because I see so many of these conversations become completely derailed. And I did want to point out one thing about Robbie and the way that she presented on the panel. She did not curse, she did not call names, and she didn't make any personal attacks. Now, there was a lot of energy, which I think a lot of the people in the chat were, responding to, but I think that you handled it well and you presented a tremendous example of how men and leaders can and should handle conversations when they get just a little bit spirited, So I think that was awesome and amazing. And so I wanted to give you your kudos and your props. I was going to send you a DM, but I said, let me just come up and commend him for that.
Listen, I appreciate that. On the Spot, I appreciate that. And let me tell you why. Is me and Mandrell, we talk about this often. I'm not just on here talking. Now, let me tell you guys the honest truth. If you guys are listening, what I'm getting ready to say is a bit offensive, and I hope that you guys won't take it that way. Is I still got some Negro in me, and every now and again, when I like when I feel like that Chicago come out, like I honestly want to take it there. But here's the thing: I care more about the relationship than I care about winning a moment. And I think if there's a time that we have to exercise love and care for people, it's when conversations get difficult, kind of like it was before. And to be fair, Robbie, when we talk in real life, she really is a sweet person. And so I want to be sure not to be guilty to let a moment in time mess up a relationship. I think this is what the community needs. But the Negro is still there. Don't get it twisted. It's still there. And I got to be careful. I
Are you from
appreciate you.
Chicago?
I am from Illinois, right off Hostage, Chicago Heights, born in a little company in Mary.
Oh, that's so cool. I never knew that.
And
Yep.
Sir Hill's actually right, incidentally. Robbie actually is a sweet person off camera. You have a one-to-one conversation with her, she actually is a sweet person.
Yeah, so this is why I said this is important, but I think I want people to hear that you came up and you were willing to call that out, and I want to thank you for that because it shows people who were like who thought about it but didn't, it wasn't valid, it wasn't stamped. It shows that people see this and that this is how we move in the right direction. So On the Spot, I really appreciate you coming up and you saying that.
No problem. And I have one more point.
Sure.
I think sometimes when we have a positive experience and something that has definitely changed our life for the better, we want to share it. And I think that we should share it. And I think some solutions are the best fit for us, but they might not be for someone else. And I think with all that we have going on in our community, it's a lot. With all that we have going on in our community, many of us will find different paths, different ways, different solutions. But I don't think that, that I think people should be presented with their options and with potential solutions that might be right for them. So, yeah.
On the Spot question for you. So we're outside and, we're out somewhere in the middle of nowhere and it starts thunderstorming, just thunderstorming, and you don't have an umbrella, but I do. And my umbrella is big. It fits my wife and children under there. You don't have an umbrella. And it's raining. Would you, if I offered you to come stand under the umbrella, would you stand under it?
Probably.
Yeah, so that's how marriage is. Just because it's not yours doesn't mean it can't benefit you at some point. And I think to that point, marriage benefits the community, even if everybody doesn't want to be married.
Yes. And I also believe that in general, whether we marry or not, whether we partner or not, we need to learn first and foremost how to be more kind to one another, how to resolve conflict with one another, and how to be sweet and loving and amazing.
I agree.
That's my point.
I agree. Everybody give On the Spot. It's been a minute. I haven't talked with you in a long time. And a shout out to you on all that you drop on Instagram. I see you doing work. So salute to you as well.
Thanks so much. Have a good night, everyone. Much love, everybody.
You too. Everybody show On the Spot some love in the chat. Really good. And then I got my last caller, Lost in Translation Podcast. How are you, my brother?
I am well, sir. How are you today?
Good. I'm not sure how much of the conversation you heard, but from what you did hear, what would you like to add to the conversation?
Here's my thing. We got to learn how to respect each other, and especially the men. They're charged with being the leaders. Now, here's my thing. I'm going to talk to the men for a minute. Whenever you see your brother is being lambasted, you need to take heed to that, because at some point, somebody's going to stick up for you. You're going to have to start edifying those who are sticking up for you. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to stand by your brother. You know, great is he that lays down his life for a friend. We got to get good at that, because what it's going to do is going to start allowing us to move the ship the way it needs to be moved. I don't need anybody greasing my wheels. And here's the dirty part about being a leader that nobody wants to talk about. You got to get rid of people who are making it hard for you to move. That's the dirty part of leadership that nobody wants to talk about. I've been doing this for 20 years. And when you got somebody pulling the rope in a different direction, that's the nasty part of leadership, that you can say, hey, look, this is the direction we're going. If you're not going in that direction, we're going to have to let you go. And I think we're getting to the point now is if we get to a situation where we have too many people wanting to derail the conversation, it's time to not invite them to the table, because A, they're not adding anything to the conversation. They're not adding any value to the conversation. So we can't work with them. That's an unfortunate part of leadership, but guess what? It has to be done, because the workers are going to work. And if you're not going to do anything, we're going to need you to move out the way. And I'm sorry that message has to come out, but as somebody who's been a leader for 20 years and just about all my entire life, it is a necessary evil. Now, it's an evil that you don't want to exercise, but if you get enough people to derail the conversation, it kind of makes you don't want to be a leader, or two, it makes you think about, is this worth it? And you get to the point where you get enough people saying, hey, you know what, this ain't worth it. That's a slippery slope we don't want to go down. Now, my thing is this. Sir Hale is doing a fantastic job. Now, you can't toot your own horn, but I'm going to toot it for him because it's the right thing to do, because it seems disingenuous when you do it yourself. So guess what? Thank you, Sir Hale, for being the man that you are. Thank you, Sir Hale, for being a leader. Thank you, Sir Hale, for being a husband. And thank you, Sir Hale, for coming out and doing what you do every single night to at least bring things back together. And since we don't want to give people their flowers, I'm going to give you yours while you're still here and tell you to keep doing what you're doing. And we have to get back to respecting leadership, because nobody's going to respect anybody that nobody else respects. But my thing is, if you get people that's actually doing the work, they deserve it. They deserve it. Why would you listen to somebody who's not doing anything? That's my whole thing. It's hard being a content creator. I've been watching people do this thing for years, and now all of a sudden I got to put my hat in the ring. Well, guess what? It's showtime, and I don't mind doing it. I decided to give up my time tonight. Normally I have a 30-minute show, but Sir Hale needed a little help tonight. And I'm gonna bring my guns to the table, because sometimes you need to make sure that when your brother is having problems, and if your brother needs help, it's time to mount up. And I think we need to get back to that as brothers and as black men, to make sure that we help each other. And Sir Hale, that's all I got to say.
Man, I don't want to get sentimental right now, but I needed to hear that, and I really appreciate that. It's funny. I asked my wife. I said, "Babe, am I being effective?" And sometimes you question it because with what I do, you get a lot of hate, and it's tough getting it a lot. But here's what I believe. I believe I'm built for it, and I do believe that when you need it, the right people come along. And I can't tell you how much I really appreciate your words, Lost in Translation podcast. Knowing you come from Kevin Samuels and being a great moderator there, the support you have on the back end, and just the man you are. To hear that from you, I hear nothing, and I receive it as nothing but respect. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you, man. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you, sir, for having me on.
Everybody, moderators, please drop Lost in Translations podcast. I'm going to wrap this show up in about 5 minutes, and then we're going to wrap up. You have a show at 8:30, correct?
No. I'm giving up my show tonight. I'm going to go help Black Man Unfiltered as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up here in about 5 minutes. So listen,
Right.
let me tell you, that's love right there. For a content creator to postpone his show to say, you know what, I'm going to go support. That's big ups, man. I got to give you an applause for that, man. That means a lot to me, man. That's real talk. Everybody, please show Lost in Translation some love. Everybody in the chat, if you're not subscribed to his channel, be sure to subscribe to him and support him. Please do that. This is one of the best brothers I know. A salute to you, my brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
A Quiet Storm, I see you in the chat as well. Good to see you, my brother. Glad that you're here. So here's what we do. Final thoughts, 100 final thoughts with you. Call out your channel, and then we'll do the same thing with Mandrell as well.
All right. My final thoughts, like I said, I want to shout out Sir Hale as well. I say, bro, we talk outside of this thing, so you already know how me and CJ view, and we want to do our part as well. And I think going to what Lost in Translation said, we do have to do a better job of having each other back, and that's something that I can admit that I got to get better at too. And I think that's a step in leadership, knowing your weaknesses and trying to get better. So as far as the followers, I think we just gotta change the mindset. You're right, bro. Maybe I do gotta be the sore thumb that stick out. I done been the black what they call the dog horse or black horse or the black sheep of the family anyway. So it's like you step into that, you gotta do it. So for me, for Tez the Five, if I can be better and speak out on things that I believe, such as marriage being the foundation of what family is and making it better for the black community, I got to do that and need the type of panel that I enjoy, because I learned something tonight. A lot of these situations that we talk about, a lot of these panels that we see, we don't learn that. We just hear a bunch of hollering, a bunch of yelling. But somewhere you can learn, you will never replace it. And I hope that you can learn some at the 5100 podcast. I include the plug in there as well. So you can go support me and CJ100 at the 5100 podcast, 5100podcast.com. All our content is there as well. So I appreciate you for even having me up on the panel tonight, Sir Hale. And I know we'll end up chopping it up behind the scenes. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And before you guys go, I want to give some love to Quincy Ferguson with the $10 super tap. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. This is going toward my new suit fund. You guys know that I'm going to be a part of the Black Manosphere Conclave. So you guys support me for that. Really appreciate it. And to Lady Novoa with the Cash App as well. Thank you so much for your love and support, your continued support of the #1 moderator. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And then Mandrell, thanks for sticking with me for the entire show. What are your final thoughts tonight, and how can we connect with you as well? From you.
You can connect with me on Instagram, Mandrell_21. And you can find me here on YouTube around. I got my own YouTube channel coming pretty soon. And you'll probably see me do a test stream there within the next few days. So get ready for that. I have no idea the ultimate direction is going to be, but I'm going to try to help people, blaze some trails here and there and see who follows. That's it. I'm going to start with fitness. I'm going to show people how to lose weight and how to get fit. And at the same time, talk about things like this. Try to get people to change their point of view and their perception and perspectives on things, because number one, our mind state is different. It's in the wrong direction. We're the wrong mindset for this kind of thing. We're looking for solutions when we're thinking about giraffes. Our mind's not on what we're doing. So hopefully I can help people out with that, and we'll see what happens from there. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was a dope stream. Much love to everybody who tuned in. I hope you guys not only found some entertainment, but I hope that you guys found something that gives you something to talk about. We believe in the community. I am a strong proponent for marriage, for family. And I believe that although we have some coursework to do, I think that we have some changes to be made. I still believe that together we can accomplish it. So to everybody who's married, love on your wife, love on your husband, and love those kids. And to those of you who don't want to be married, I echo the sentiments of Owner Spot. Let's respect each other, let's love each other, and at least support each other who are trying to do good. And I think as we start there, we'll start seeing better outcomes in our community. Until next time, much love to everybody. Let's go support Black Men Unfiltered, and we'll talk with you again soon. Talk with you soon. Bye.
Let it go. 얼어붙어 like whoa. 띵하고 어지러워. I see. 한여름에도 난 겨울. Yeah, girl, cold blood. Yeah, 너와 있을 때 I swear. 제가 먼저 zero 폭설한 그 children. 꿈에도 I wasn't dumb. 나만 빼고 넌 모두에게 참 친절해. 배신감이 들어 단판이 태도 머릿속을 흔드니 ibuprofen 그만해 it's time to stop. 승부욕을 자극하는 style. Yeah, 알면서도 마음이 자꾸 내게 가. 아마 빠져버릴까. If you want me back, I'll tell you I'm sorry. If you want me back, I'll tell you stop trying. Yeah, you got me. Let it go. 얼어붙어 like whoa. 띵하고 어지러워. I see. 한여름에도 넌 겨울. Yeah, girl, you cold-blooded. Yeah, girl, you cold-blooded. Yeah. Girl, you cold-blooded. Girl, you cold-blooded. I'm like frozen 뭐야 모두 stress은 gotta let it go 했어. 소개팅 데이팅 어플 다 깔아 또 보았어. 반대가 끌린대 opposite's attract. Don't know about me and you, yeah we fell into the cracks. Yeah 갖고 노네 no cap. 왜 나는 보여 what's happening. 객관적일 수가 없이 이미 game white flag and wave it fast. Yeah I'm leaving back but 말은 don't 너만 보면 나도 내 맘 I don't know 이건 love a relationship. 헷갈리기만 해 girl. I'll tell you I'm sorry. If you want me back, I'll tell you stop trying. Yeah, you got me. Let it go. 얼어붙어 like whoa. 띵하고 어지러워. I see. 한여름에도 넌 겨울. Girl, you cold-blooded. Let it go. 얼어붙어 like whoa. 띵하고 어지러워. I see. 한여름에도 넌 겨울. Girl, you cold-blooded.
Much love, everybody. Have a great night. Till next time, we'll talk with you soon.
Yeah. Girl, you cold-blooded. Girl, you cold-blooded. Yeah, girl, you cold-blooded. Yeah. Girl, you cold-blooded. Girl, you cold-blooded.